Hello everyone, I'm Sheriff Wayne Ivey of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, and I'm here to tell you that the reason Florida's crime rate is at an all-time low is because law enforcement has its boot firmly planted on the throat of crime, and we're not letting up. Unfortunately, during several of our recent legislative sessions, a number of our Florida legislators have decided that now is the time to go soft on crime, since our crime rate is at a 44-year low, and Florida now has fewer victims of crime than any other time in the history of our state. These same lawmakers are pushing to do away with significant crime prevention tools like the 85% rule that mandates criminals who have victimized others must do 85% of their time, the 10-20 life sentencing guideline for those who use a firearm in the commission of a crime, and even minimum mandatory sentencing for drug dealers who peddle poison on our streets. Really? What's next? Give the criminals a hug? Or maybe put them in timeout until they write on the chalkboard 100 times that they won't rob people or sell drugs again? Folks, programs like 10-20 life, minimum mandatory sentences, and the 85% rule have paved the way for us to keep violent offenders and career criminals locked behind bars so they can no longer prey upon you and your families. These programs are the exact reason why we are experiencing low crime rates and safe communities throughout our state. I'm convinced that those legislators who support this type of mentality have lost their complete minds and are determined to send our state back to the high crime era of the mid-'80s when someone back then thought it was a good idea to let violent criminals and drug dealers out early because our crime rate was low and our prisons were full. Their actions back then caused thousands of innocent citizens to be brutally murdered and victimized because they put dangerous criminals back out on the street just so they could say they lowered the prison population or cut the prison budget. Make no mistake, violent criminals and those preying upon the addictions of others by selling opioids and other dangerous substances for their own greed only belong in one place: jail. In the past 24 months, our community alone has faced 172 deaths from drug overdoses that were a direct result of fentanyl, heroin, and other substances peddled by drug dealers. Yet even with that, some legislators think letting drug dealers out of their sentences early is a good idea. Give me a break. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that the reason our crime rate was low back then and is even lower today is because if you keep violent criminals and drug dealers locked behind bars, they can't victimize anyone else. Trust me when I tell you that there's a direct correlation between keeping bad people locked up and good people safe. For the past several sessions, this movement to go soft on crime has been gaining momentum. But fortunately, during this last legislative session, our governor, Ron DeSantis, who truly gets it, temporarily put a stop to this insanity when he said criminals need to serve their sentences and the public gets upset when they don't. I personally believe that government's one and only responsibility is to keep its citizens safe, and letting criminals out of jail early goes against every principle of crime prevention there is. The governor was exactly right in his comments, as in my opinion, letting criminals out from their sentence early is a slap in the face to the victims. Yet make no mistake about it, this same rhetoric will raise its ugly head once again in the next legislative session because they refuse to listen to those who know more about crime prevention than they do: our sheriffs, our chief of police, our prosecutors, and most importantly, our victims. Well, I'm not sitting back and waiting on them to start their nonsense again in the next session, and neither should you. While I am proud to say our local legislators here in Brevard County stood strong with me on this issue, unfortunately, others around the state did not, as they bought into this soft on crime mentality and decided it was a good idea to let criminals out early so they could prey on others once again. It's time to let our legislators across the state know exactly where we stand and that we expect them to stand with our law enforcement officers and victims, not the criminals. It's time for those who would consider doing this to stand on the right side of justice for victims and not the side of those who put others in harm's way. Quite frankly, it's time for them to do their jobs and protect Florida citizens like they were entrusted to do. For the first time in a long time, we are winning and criminals are losing. So now is not the time to go soft on crime. I'm asking you, regardless of what county you live in, to call your legislators and let them know that you expect them to stand with us as we are standing tough on crime for you. Let them know that if they want to go soft on crime, you will go hard on them at the ballot box. Because if they're not representing what you want, then who are they really representing?